Welcome to Worthy Ones, the video series, of course, guys, where I talk about all of the newest issue 1 comic books that I read for the current comic book week and deem them worthy or not worthy. I'm Mike Spider Slayer. Welcome back to Comic Book Corner 2.0. If you guys love daily comic book content, if you love me helping you make decisions on what comic books to buy, or if you just love to watch comic book stuff on YouTube, you came to the right place. Guys, consider hitting that subscribe button. So before we dive into it, I just gotta give a quick shout out to Sidekick. This will help you with your organization of your comic book collection. What happens when you start a new box with too much empty space? Your books slide, they slouch, they flop, they bend, they crease, and now your books are ruined. But what's the solution? Well, pick up a Sidekick today. Be the hero of your comic collection. The Sidekick fits firmly in your short box to keep those comics upright and prevent them from falling. So guys, check out Sidekick today. There is a link in my description box below. This product is made in the USA. It offers free shipping, and if you use my promo code Slayer15, you'll also get 15% off. And also, if that is not good enough, guys, when you make a purchase for Sidekick, there is a portion of the proceeds go to Comic Book for Kids. So they are a proud partner of that charity. So guys, what are you waiting for? Check out Sidekick to protect your comic book collection. Star Wars Mace Windu issue 1. This is a 36-page comic for $5. This book is written by Mark Bernardin and then Georges Genti, or is it Gorgeous Genti? I don't know. I'm sorry if I say all these creators' names incorrectly. I'm never good with names. I'm not even good with the English language, I should say. But here is the artwork in the comic book. It's fine for, what it is. I was expecting probably a little bit more, a different type of action in this comic book. But I like Mace Windu as a character, and I feel like we did not get enough of him in the movies, and I would have loved to seen more of him there. So what better thing is than to put him in a comic book, right? Now, I would have loved to seen if somehow he survived the battle against the Emperor from the Star Wars movies, but this is a prequel comic, okay? Now, what this comic had to offer was a story about him going after this scientist that discovered this type of fuel that can make ships go super fast and stuff like that. And he has to go find this particular person. And in the meantime, it's a race against time with other people going to find this girl and him, fighting some random other characters. Again, this is a time where it takes place like well before the Separatists and the Clone Wars and all that other stuff. So I'm going to find this book not worthy. This was a book that really wasn't on my radar, but I decided to pick it up because it was Mace Windu, and I haven't read a lot of Star Wars book, and I wanted to see if this would do something for me, but it really didn't. And it's kind of unfortunate because I think Mace Windu's a pretty kick-ass character, but this was not the adventure I pictured him going on. I really don't know what it was, but it wasn't this. So there was nothing here for me where it was like, man, I can't wait for the next issue of freaking Mace Windu, because this book was so kick-ass, right? And there's so many other comic books out there, and for $6, for a comic, or $5 for a comic, you have to really pick and choose what you truly, truly enjoy. And if it doesn't really hook you after that first issue, then it's going to be a pass. So unfortunately, this one is a pass for me. Not a horrible comic. I would say it's a C, but it's just not enough to keep going. Dark Souls, The Willow King. This is issue 1. This is a $4 comic written by George Mann. The artwork is done by Man House. This is a comic book where you can expect a lot of darkness because this is Dark Souls. This is based off of probably one of the hardest video game franchises ever made, right? And my son has played all these video games. I've watched quite a few gameplay hours, and I'm like, oh my God, this game is insane. So I did get him a copy of this for him to read, and I read this myself, and It was an interesting comic book. Now, I understood the story a little bit because of what I've seen from the games. I don't know if an everyday reader is really going to get attached to this comic. There's not really anything here to make you like characters or really get you involved in the story. It's a bunch of narration explaining to you the world and what has happened in this world. And basically, it's about this king who had a duty of actually keeping flames ignited, and if they did not stay ignited, then what happens is the darkness falls and then evil comes around, right? Well, the king hired this warrior. He wound up perishing. The king decided not to do his duties anymore. He dies. Darkness arises. Warriors come up, and it looks like they're the ones that are now going to have to stop what is called the Willow King. Again, it was okay, but it wasn't anything that was groundbreaking to make me say, oh my gosh, I gotta read freaking Dark Souls. This was so good. I found it actually a little boring, and it was not worthy. And I think the artwork and the tone of the colors was just too dark. I get what you're getting at here because it's Dark Souls, but at the same time, I think it took away from the detail and what could have been a really great comic here. I know they have made plenty of Dark Souls comics in the past, but for me, reading the very first issue ever of a Dark Souls comic, it was okay for me. So I'm not going to continue this one either. And same thing, it was just average. It was a C comic. Wolverine Madripoor Knights, this is issue 1. This is a 28-page comic for $4. The writer here is Chris Claremont, and the art is done by Edgar Zalzar. The artwork is great. There's a lot of fun action scenes. There's some cool dialogue in here. And really, with the writing done by Claremont in this type of artwork, this really felt like it brought you back to the older days of X-Men. And the way Wolverine was written here just reminded me of that 90s Logan, right? It just was pretty cool, just the way he talks and the way he treats others and his fighting abilities and just not taking any shit and kicking ass. Like, I really enjoyed that aspect of it. And I love how he's protective of Jubilee in this comic as well. This book takes place right after the pages of 268 of Uncanny X-Men. It's this book right here, as you get to see in that opening page. It would have been cool if they did have a recap or a synopsis page where a lot of, Marvel comics do, and they did not have that there in case you were, a younger reader or have never read that issue or just haven't read the issue in a long time, right? But we get to see our heroes in Madripoor, and we get to see them in these tall skyrise buildings, and they're talking about how one building will be built, and then within the next year it will be pretty much extinct because everyone tries to outdo others. There's a lot of money there. We get to see them get attacked by the Hand. Captain America makes his appearance here. And the reason why he's here is because there's some extraterrestrial technology that he was sent to go after. And he is looking for Logan and Betsy and Black Widow or whatnot to try to help them with this mission. This book was a lot of fun, and it was worthy. Again, everything about this book was great. It just reminded me of a simpler time of comics. And you don't take it too seriously, and you just have fun with it. So at the end of the day, I'm going to give this book a solid B. I can't wait for the next issue. The One Hand, this is issue 1. This is a 32-page comic book for $4, written by Ram V. Followers of the channel know that I'm not a huge Ram V guy. It's very hit or miss, but I decided to give this one a try. Lawrence Campbell is the artist in here. This definitely gave me a lot of like Andrea Sorrentino vibes with like the color tones and just the way certain things were drawn in here. So that's not a bad thing, right? So it was pretty cool to see this very mysterious type of art style and whatnot. So what was this book about? Was it any good? Am I going to continue this? Because this does continue into another book called The Six Fingers Issue 1. So it's like a crossover of books, right? So this book takes place like well into the future. I think in the year like 2873, like something weird like that. And there is detective by the name of Ari Nasser, okay? And he has been dealing with these cases, these murder cases, for his entire career. And this guy is literally on the brink of retirement. And this case has basically gotten cold. He was on his way to retirement, and then all of a sudden something happens again where he thinks it's like a copycat case because he solved it once, he solved it twice, and now it's happening again. And he's like, stop my retirement. I got to figure out what's going on, right? So along the way, we wind up seeing him trying to piece things together, certain situations, and we get to see kind of like what his life is. We get to see kind of a little bit of this world of what it's like as well. Him hooking up with some robot hooker and stuff like that, kind of weird. But you know what? It was worthy. I actually liked it. I found myself really intrigued by the case itself. Because whenever this guy commits a murder or something happens, he leaves like this handprint, and he leaves all these symbols, right? Very interesting. So I can't believe I really like this book from Ram V, but entertaining, and we'll see what happens with that next Six Fingers crossover book. So I'm gonna give this one a B+. I really enjoyed it, guys. Looking forward to the next issue. Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, The Return, issue 1. So you guys really know how I feel about Power Rangers. You heard the story in a previous video how my first introduction to Power Rangers when I was making out with my girlfriend back in like 1994. And her little brother left on the TV and it was Power Rangers that showed up. I'm like, what the hell is Power Rangers? And ever since then, I hated it because it ruined my makeout session, and like I thought they were a cheap knockoff of Voltron. But anyway, Mighty Morphin Power Rangers: The Return, issue 1 is a 32-page comic, $5. It's written by Amy Jo Johnson, who is the Pink Ranger herself. I saw that movie just because I wanted to see her in the movie. But when I heard about this comic, I was like, okay, this sounds very intriguing because it's a book where it takes place 22 years in the future. Like these guys are like in their 40s and whatnot. Okay, so let's check out the artwork in the comic. Artwork is really cool. That's just a basic page of just like your normal characters, like Trini and the Pink Ranger and whatnot, Kimberly. So here you got the Red Ranger in there. So not a lot of action in this comic. It's basically a lot of setup, and it tells you where the Rangers or what they've been doing for the past, so many years, right? And so here we get to see Kimberly, who has taken on basically a different persona. They have decided to part ways as Rangers, not let anybody know that they are Power Rangers or that they were Power Rangers. And they all wind up coming together for like basically a family reunion here because Trini, the Yellow Ranger, has passed away. And you get to see kind of what's been going on with the other Power Rangers. Like I said, the Pink Ranger, Kimberly, is kind of out and hiding in freaking Canada. You get Zach, who is the Black Ranger, who does charity work and does hip hop stuff. And then you got Billy, who's doing scientific nerdy stuff, And then you wind up seeing the Red Ranger. Something happens to him in the beginning of the comic book, right? And they get into this heated conversation. We found out that the Power Ranger coins have been being used for certain things, and there's some shit going down with the Red Ranger, and they're trying to find Jason, right? Is it Jason? Yeah. And of course, Tommy's dead and all that other stuff. I thought this book was really good. This was worthy. And you definitely get a surprise at the end because someone has a Ranger coin in their hand that kind of goes to Kimberly's house, and she doesn't even know who this person is, but it is related to Trini. So I really enjoyed this. It didn't feel like a Power Ranger book. It felt like an independent comic book, and it was just something I really liked because it was just so far removed from the original concept, even though you did see characters that you recognize from the series. I thought it was off to a great start in this, adventure that takes place years on in their life. So Yeah, man, I'm giving this bad boy an A. I love this book, dude. I can't wait for the second issue. ThunderCats issue 1. This book is 32 pages for $5. Probably one of the more highly anticipated comics of the week besides Ultimate Black Panther. If you guys know ThunderCats, it was a property back in the 80s. This one was written by Declan Shalvey, and the art is done by Drew Moss. Now, the artwork, I was very curious on how they were going to draw the ThunderCats in here. And I thought that the artwork was good, but in very many ways, in my opinion, it missed the mark. I didn't think Lion-O was drawn the way that I remembered him or the way I wanted him drawn. I wanted a little bit more detail. I thought the faces were a little bit off on the characters. At times with certain action scenes, characters didn't have very much of a facial expression involved in there. So for me, the artwork was good, but it wasn't the best, okay? When it comes to something like this, I expect the artwork to be top notch. Now, for me right here, this was good artwork, right? I liked the way Mumra looked. So what did you get in this particular comic book? Well, you wind up getting, obviously, a brief origin of Lion-O and how he is the chosen one to be the ruler of the ThunderCats. You find out that their planet explodes. They were chased by what are they, the Mutants or something? Is that how they call them, or is it just mutants? They wind up going to Third Earth. And we see the struggles of a young Lion-O who has an adult body, but still has the mind of a child. And Panther, who is the father figure of, Lion-O, is telling him that he's not ready to have the sword of omens. And he goes out on his own, and then all of a sudden he comes across the big threat in the comic book, which is Slythe. I think that's how you say his name, the mutant guy, right? And he's this lizard creature. And you get to see a battle in here, and then you get to see in an iconic scenes from the comic where Lion-O calls his ThunderCats, where he calls the sword and he goes, thunder, 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 ThunderCats, ho! And you get to see that, which is obviously, fan service in the book. And at the end, you wind up getting, something that you wouldn't normally expect. And I was kind of surprised by that and going, wow, I want to read issue 2. So this comic is worthy. Now, this comic book was not perfect in any stretch of the imagination, like I said. One was the art. I thought the art could have been a little bit better. I thought Chitara could have looked a little sexier and a little bit more detailed. I thought Tigra's face was a little bit off. It looked like he was almost wearing a mask instead of just like his tiger self. The kids looked a little weird. And so I just thought the art could have been better. The story felt too short. They tried to condense a lot into this 28-page comic. Was it 28 pages? 32-page comic book. You tried to get like a little origin story. You got to see a struggle from Lion-O. We got to see a threat. You tried to pay that fan service. You tried to get the hook at the end. I felt like it was just too much cramped up. And I felt like if it was like 40 pages, you could have had the comic breathe a little bit. You could have told a little bit longer of an origin story. It just felt too cramped. And I don't know why they decided to go with such a short first issue, but I would have loved to seen it, have it breathe a little bit, flesh out a little bit more of Lion-O and his struggles and things like that. So at the end of the day, this was not perfect, like I said. I'm going to give this one a B. Ultimate Black Panther issue 1. This is a 40-page comic for $6. Is this book pure spec, or is there an actual real story here? Because this book got a lot of hype based off of the success of Ultimate Comics Spider-Man, right? Or Ultimate Spider-Man, I should say. This book is written by Brian Hill. The artwork is done by Stefano Caselli. The artwork is actually really good in this comic. We don't get a lot of dialogue in this book, but you get a fair amount. And I love how you get to see the way Wakanda looks in this world and just the way all the warriors look, and you get introduced to to all the players in this, like Okoye and Shuri, and you get to see just everybody, and you get to see how Black Panther is the king in here and how he makes his strategic decisions on when to go to war and when not to go to war. We get introduced to Killmonger in this world, and it was actually really, really good. So I'm going to say this book is worthy. I'm not going to talk too much about the plot here because I don't want to spoil it, but I think this was a great reintroduction to the character for longtime fans that have not enjoyed a series of Black Panther. And this is a perfect introduction for new fans of Black Panther. I just thought it was a really good book. And it's not just about the hype or just about the spec, right? But there is definitely a solid story here. And I'm going to show you, though, the way Black Panther looks. I mean, I think he looks pretty awesome in here. He looks super bulked up. He looks like he's going to kick ass, take names. And I say go out and buy this book, guys. I don't think you'll be disappointed. This is an A. This is a character that's not my favorite character because I felt like there's never been any recent really good series that have got me attached to Black Panther. And I feel like this could be the one, especially with Moon Knight attached to it. So, yeah, man, if you could get your hands on it, read it. If you've already got your hands on it and you're saving it for like it to be worth $1 million one day, just open it up for 5 minutes and read it. I think you'll really enjoy it. So there you have it, webheads. Hopefully you enjoyed this week's episode of Worthy Ones. Some really highly anticipated books this week. Some of them made the grade. Some of them didn't quite make that grade. But you know what? I want to hear in the comments below what you thought of this week's new number ones. And of course, guys, if you love the content, I'll leave you more content right here for you to click on. Follow me on TikTok at Comic Book Corner 2.0. Brand new account over there. And of course, guys, support the local comic shops. Keep buying, keep collecting, but always remember to read those comics. Guys, thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time.